I do want to get to the tell the truth tape of the week, which shifting gears would be on the other side of the ball because this was a historic performance as far as the Chiefs defense was concerned. 8 sacks, 3 sacks by one Mr. George Karlaftis. Um, Charles Omenihu got himself a strip sack versus his former team. Felix Anduike-Uzama got a strip sack as well, in addition to 2 tackles for losses and only 6 snaps on the field. Um, and I wanted to say this before we got truly into the tape and kind of broke this down. This is a game in which Chris Jones only had about what a 15% pressure rate. Like he didn't go crazy from Chris Jones' perspective. This is a lot of the others doing a really good job. And ultimately, if they're going to beat what is a really good Buffalo Bills offensive line, they're going to need a similar performance as well. But we're going to look at these sacks kind of one by one as we go through them and talk about what CJ Stroud did. Um, and how this because kind of affected him and how Steve Spagnuolo really turned up the pressure from that perspective and used a lot of simulated pressures to give some issues as well. And this is another kind of 5 down front or 5 look, I should say, as Nick Bolton's going to kind of walk up, threaten the guard from that perspective. And this was early on where Chris Jones just got his one of the game where he's lined up on the right tackle, which obviously had no chance to block Chris Jones one on one.
That's a win.
Yeah, and was able to get CJ Stroud on the field. And this is, what you come to expect from Chiefs defense. Being able to get Chris Jones a one-on-one because you put Nick Bolton over the guard, and he absolutely whoops the right tackle. It's a rookie right tackle out there, guys.
Yeah. I also love the design, the loop underneath from a Minihu. I feel like it allows you to keep the contain of the pocket as well too, which gives CJ pretty much no route to escape. Say if he was to get past Chris or whatever, because we obviously know Josh Allen can do certain things like that as well to break these kind of tackles and still try to extend these kind of plays. But I think if you keep your integrity, keep your rush lane integrity, and have something there to keep that contained, then it can help corral and keep those guys guys like this in the pocket.
When you're playing like guys like him, you got to stay on his level. Don't ever get above or beyond his level. Stay on his hip.
And you're going to need that from this perspective. You can see where the Chiefs level is at. When Chris Jones wins this, everybody's in front and kind of a wall of red jerseys in front as well. You're going to need to be creative in your pass rush plan from that perspective against Josh Allen, this good offensive line in general, but specifically, like you guys said, to keep him corralled because he is going to attempt to scramble. We know he is very good at it, and he's going to beat you sometimes. But the lack of creativity in the first play or in the first game versus the Bills, I think, stuck out. They did not try a lot of variations in ways to try and get after Josh Allen as well. This next one, this is the Charles Omenihu one. And again, he teleports past the right guard here.
Big C.
Another good design. Nick Bolton kind of walking around. They've got Justin Reed threatening over the tight end there, giving a little bit of a look. And ultimately, Charles Omenihu is just like, well, goodbye. And the right guard kind of turns him loose a little bit, but also, boy, that was quick. He teleported right past him for that strip sack. I'll say that much.
Yeah, man. Having a Minihu back in this matchup this time around is going to be very beneficial. He just brings a different type of juice to this defensive line, and I think he also allows for Chris Jones to get a lot more one-on-ones than he probably sees in his in his career. So I think he's just having that extra piece, and then how motivated he is as well. I think surges through that defensive line. The tenacity that he brings, the nastiness that he brings to this defensive line, I think helps them out a lot. You can clearly tell the attitude of that defensive line is a lot different.
And I also say a nice portion of it that he brings extra is he does go after the football. He goes after the football when he has the opportunity to.
Or straight strip sack games.
Yeah. And if he's able to create another strip sack like he did in last year's AFC Championship game versus Lamar Jackson, in this type of game specifically, given the way that being able to hold on the ball has been key for all the teams in the playoffs, but specifically these two teams, that could be a game-swinging type of play as well. This one's going to be a standard 4-man rush and really more of a coverage sack. And you got to give a shout-out here from how they're able to handle this. Kind of a quarters look. Nick Bolton kind of takes away that initial seam route, and then is able to nail down on the check down. Drew Tranquil does a good job on that quick out route as well. Bottom of the screen, Watson's playing the zone effectively, and CJ Stroud has nowhere to go with the football. And eventually Mike Dana, and I believe that's
Tershawn. Yep.
Yeah, and Wharton is able to combine for him.
Big Turkey.
And I said, kind of going into this game, Tershawn Wharton was somebody to watch. There was a mismatch on the interior. There were going to be opportunities, obviously, to be able to get after him. And obviously, the center is going to slide to Chris Jones. So that's a one-on-one for Dana and Wharton. And even though it may take a little bit of a while, when you have the opportunity to attack, you have a chance to be able to get after these guys. And ultimately, that's what they were able to there with Wharton and Dana being able to corral them. One other shout out I do want to see. Justin Reed and Jaden Hicks, obviously with Brian Cook kind of being banged up earlier in the game, able to step in and do Jaden Hicks did a good job doing his job from that perspective. And they did try to use Nico Collins on the end breaker right here at the top of the screen. And Jaden Hicks played it perfectly, was able to stick with him. And that was a really good play from Jaden Hicks as well. And we got some good snaps out of him throughout the entirety of the game. I think we'll be able to see it as well from this angle too. Is that Mechie? My bad. I said it was Nico. No, they did a switch release. Yeah, that was Nico. Nico's looking flash right there.
Yep, that's Nico.
Mm-hmm.
Nico's in the slot on this one. A little chip. A little two-way go. You could probably break in or out.
Yeah, and this one here. Go ahead, DJ.
It also got to a point, I think, once CJ got hurt, Spags, you could clearly tell just start dialing up the pressure.
Sitting the heat more.
Kind of knew at this point his mobility might be a little bit affected, so just send as much pressure as you can.
He was frustrated, boy.
Dude, on every third long, I was like, "Yeah, Spags about to bring it."
And this was that fourth and long where they kind of thought about not going for it, and then they rushed it and decided to go for it. And the Chiefs had a proper call on here. They got 3 down linemen and got 2 guys kind of over the guards as well. And they are going to send that 5 with the delayed blitz as well to try and get after the running back as well, so he can't help. And George Karlaftis, again, one-on-one to Dalton Schultz. And the Bobby Slowick, which is the Kyle Shanahan type offense, has very simple protection rules. And if you're able to break those rules, you can get these types of mismatches, which was, George Karlaftis on tight ends. And ultimately, we saw that a few times in this game. And shout out to Spags for being able to take advantage of them. And George Karlaftis to be able to execute that effectively and be able to get after CJ Stroud, obviously contributing to his big day with 3 sacks.
Drop back. Oh, yeah, George.
Quick off the line.
Get off that jump.
Come here,
boy. So next one here, we're going to get, I believe that is Nico at the top of the screen. Trent McDuffie is well matching him. Once again, Bolton right over that guard, trying to create a little bit of an extra advantage. He's going to drop out with the running back. They're going to get basically a cover 2-man look from this perspective. And this is one of the things, and I'll point this out quickly here, but really good coverage on the back end. Nazi at the bottom of the screen, sticking with Hutchinson on that drag route. We see what's happening at the top of the screen. They've got, these 2 vertical routes pretty much capped off. Justin Reed handles that out of the backfield, not an issue. And ultimately, Karlaftis gets his second sack of the day. But the one thing I wanted to point out here is versus Josh Allen, like we talked about, those escape hatches, those are going to be important. But sometimes you can send those late loopers and catch a guy. Actually, yeah. It's going to show it. Actually, I was getting there. Watch what Charles Omenihu does here. Obviously, they're going to run that little stunt. Dana takes him up, and what looks like may have been an escape hatch for CJ Stroud, right here.
Come here.
All of a sudden, it is shut off, and obviously George Karlaftis is able to get all the way around Blake Fisher to get the job done.
Yeah, Josh is definitely going to be one of those guys. You got to make him run into some sacks at points in times. So this is not necessarily all about just getting there and getting to him. If you can get there, and get him on the ground.
Stay on his level at all times.
But it's more just about corralling him and sometimes making him run into sacks. A lot of teams, honestly, they do it to Patrick Mahomes when they spy him and try to just keep him corralled into the pocket, not allow him to get out of the pocket and create. And I think Josh Allen is kind of the same way. You just gotta keep your rush lane integrity, not try to be a hero. If you can make the play, make the play. But it's more so keeping him in that pocket and winning with your other guys up front and running him into some of those sacks as well.
I mean, from a
And
defensive back, so good here.
I was going to say real quick, and that is something that the Buffalo Bills, like you said, some people do it to the Mahomes. That is something the Bills did a lot during their first matchup, was sending those late loopers to try and cut off those beat gap escape hatches for Patrick Mahomes as well. We'll see how things adjust from that perspective. I'm sure that the Chiefs have talked about some of the wrinkles that they'll be able to exploit and how Mahomes deals with that in the second matchup. Go ahead, CJ.
From a defensive back standpoint, obviously we know Jalen Watson didn't play during the last game, so I think it gives us a lot more flexibility up front. When you have both corners who know you can give you that extra second, that half second in coverage, to DG's point, when you have that extra split second, that allows your rush to get home more. So now you don't have to worry about trying to sack Josh Allen, which I think we made that mistake in the first game, instead of just corralling him. So if you stay on his level and keep him in the pocket, his eyes will go from his receivers and come down and look at focusing on the rush. And then he'll either miss and get a coverage sack, or he'll miss and get an incompletion. Or even if we run him out of bounds or he throws the ball away. Throw the ball away or incompletions or wins for us this week. It's not all about getting sacks with Josh Allen. So I think having your full complement of DBs will help you give your D-line more rush, as if they need the help right now because they're playing at a high level. But back and in the front end work hand in hand, and I think we're fully equipped to handle Josh Allen much better than we were back in week 10, week 11 when we played him? I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Well, you certainly hope that you're a little bit better equipped, to say the least. But I will say this for certain: being able to have Charles, being able to have Charles Omenihu and Jalen Watson in this game is going to be massive on both fronts. And hopefully it allows you to properly attack their weapons, and then obviously that really good offensive line for the Bills on both fronts. Because you're going to
Dawkins has been good this year. He's been really good.
Yeah, and a guy like Josh Allen, you don't necessarily beat him because of his maturity. You don't necessarily beat him by attacking him. You beat him by being able to attack everybody else and not leaving him with good options from that perspective.
Exactly.
He is that great of a quarterback ultimately in that right. And also, CJ Stroud, in my opinion, given the circumstances, I thought had a damn good game. He made some really good throws.
He extended some plays with his legs.
He tried to extend some plays with his legs as well. Ultimately, we were just able to take advantage a little bit more often than not. So, yeah, we'll see. Obviously, George Karlaftis to finish off the sack here and move on to the next one here. Late action, you're going to get a blitz and drop out. They're going to get to a little bit of cover 2 look. And, again, this is one of those CJ Stroud trying to make something happen. I'll go the sideline view because it's important to see. 2 safeties are going to drop out, which you're going to see Justin Reed walking up, mugging up that A gap, Bolton get into the B gap. They're going to have the blitzer late, Shamari Connor, come from that slot position as well. They're going to drop George Karlaftis from the 3 tech and Justin Reed from that mugged up A gap and get underneath, create that 4 under 2 deep look, and be able to wall things off. And ultimately, where you're messing with the protection schemes, it allows Shamari Connor to beat the running back and get into the backfield pretty easily. And it's a good job by Shamari Connor, beating the running back using that swim move. That's why you do the safety / linebacker running back drills in training camp, and then also being able to chase CJ down from the backside as well.
That's exactly what I meant. When you start containing the quarterback, he takes his eyes off of his progressions and starts looking at the rush. And he's looking at the rush, then it ends up being an incompletion, or fortunately here we got a sack. So do that more often times than not. That's how you beat Josh Allen for sure.
Great job of, again, keeping him corralled in the pocket, making him step up, and then just having a guy there, having Nick there, just kind of bring him back, and then Shamari finishes the job, making him run into the sack pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a massive job by Nick being able to get over there and shut off that initial escape hatch and allowing time for Shamari to get back in there as well. And look, if you're going to be blitzing, if you're going to be rushing a guy like Josh Allen, or in this case, CJ Stroud, you have to be relentless. And you just have to be relentless in that pursuit. Unfortunately, we have the bodies, it feels like, to really be able to handle that type of game plan from that aspect too. And so here we go. We're getting to down in the red zone as well. I think this is another one kind of coverage sack. And ultimately, obviously, we get Charles, or I should say, this is the Felix Anduke Zoma one. And he does a good job of disclosing the tackle. But we'll start as far as the coverage is concerned. Only rushing for zone down here, kind of a quarter pseudo look. Um, Bottom of the screen locked up. Dalton Schultz being able to get driven on by the safety. Running backs out to the backfield, but ultimately they got a guy out there, and guys are pretty much plastered across the level. And Felix does a really good job discarding that tackle against after initially being stonewalled, and then being able to kind of shove him off and get after CJ as well.
Yeah.
Gets that long arm shut off, tries to get to the edges and able to get up there, and then kind of hand fights his way until he can discard the tackle and get after.
Yeah, I think at this point in the game, they already kind of had CJ's internal clock sped up. I think you can kind of see on the back end there was a guy slipping open in the back of the zone, but I just think at that point in time, his internal clock is like, look, I gotta either get out of this pocket or get rid of the ball. And
you can see
his eyes off progression.
You can see he's a little antsy there, and there's no initial pressure kind of given.
Yeah.
There's nothing here, but he's
No
just
reason to move.
Yeah, he's gonna get a little happy feet, start looking around, and then he's trying to scream.
Take your eyes off the aggression, focus on the rush. That's
right for another sack.
We start doing this.
Absolutely.
Another good job of corralling, containing, keeping him in the pocket, and then just putting him under duress.
Facts.
Absolutely. We'll roll the next one here. They do make a little bit of a shift, go to a straight 4-man rush. And again, because they kind of show that, remember earlier where they showed, Justin Reed and then kind of Nick Bolton walking up to the opposite sides of the line, and they sent the slot pressure. Again, CJ Stroud is trying to account for that, sends the line accordingly to the left from that perspective, and again leaves the tight end one-on-one with George Karlaftis. And even through the chip help, George is able to get past both of them and put CJ Stroud on the ground with, again, really good coverage on the back end. And again, when you have the ability to get pressure with 4, then you have extra guys in coverage to be able to handle what's being shown from that perspective.
That bump, run that playback. That last one. Nick Bolton is so savvy on this play. Watch how he jams. That little extra nod he gave the D-line that 1 second to get home. Because that's where CJ wanted to go with the ball. Because they had the low receiver breaking out. He was trying to throw that ball to the back byline. Nick bumping him right there, gives him that 1.5 second, forces CJ to turn down, can't to make that throw. Then George ends up finishing the play. So that was a very savvy play by Nick Bolton in coverage, by the way.
It's a good bump from him, and then obviously from Shamar Connor. Just any type of rerouting you can get on that play is massive, especially when you're talking about the condensed
red zone,
space as far as the red zone is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great communication through the bunch set. These bunch sets are really hard to kind of decipher and communicate and pass off. So it's a good sign of showing, Nick Bolton's intelligence of where to be, but also being able to communicate with his guys on who's got who's where, and taking care of your job, And then again, I think still another good job of especially up front between Turk and Wharton to kind of corral, contain, keep the integrity of that pocket, and allow the edges to do their job and crash in, and not allow CJ to kind of escape and get out of there.
Yeah, and look, this is one of those things. CJ, I don't know if he necessarily got credit for the pressure here, but he does an amazing job of being able to walk Tunsil back into CJ Stroud's lap and make him feel that presence from that perspective as well. And obviously, Karlaftis, again, relentless to be able to shut off the escape from that aspect too. And yeah, so those are the 8 sacks from the Kansas City Chiefs. They did an excellent job of being able to get after CJ Stroud, and they're going to have to do a better job to get after Josh Allen, because obviously it's a better offensive line, it's a better play design, it's a better weapon group, and obviously it's an alien quarterback from that